Hello, everyone. Seeing that it's 6 o'clock, um, I think I'll call this meeting to order. Ashley, President Stemple couldn't be here tonight for personal reasons, so she asked me to for her, which I'm happy to do. This is a meeting of committee chairs, June 2nd, 2020. Call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. This meeting is being recorded by committee chairs. If anyone else is doing the same, please let me know. Clerk Scott, would you please roll?
Yes. Councilor Wheeler,
Here.
Councilor Disorder,
Here.
Councilor Gwynn,
Here.
Councilor Dolan,
Here.
Councilor Gilmore.
Here.
Vice President Wheeler, you have a quorum of committee chairs.
Thank you very much. So we're going to start here with President's notes. Those of you on the committee should have received emails about two items which President Stemple wanted the chairs to address, and she asked me to lead the discussion on those. So
or meeting number followed by pound.
We'll start, and I hope that no one can hear. There's someone, my neighbor is weed whacking directly outside my window. So let me know if you can't hear me. So I think we'll start the discussion on the Public Safety Forum, which was suggested by some constituents, at least one of whom I see is on the line. And there was an email that went out to the mayor from President Stemple and to Chief Hague and Chief Strand. And obviously, with everything going on in cities across the country, this is an issue that President Stemple felt and feels like it's important for us to talk about publicly as a community. And I believe she spoke to the mayor to some extent already. Mayor, are you here? I see a couple City of Greenfield names logged on here. I'm not sure if any of them are the mayor, but Roxanne, if you are in the room, let me know. Otherwise, we'll come back to you. But I do see Emily Bork here, who is one of the constituents who brought this this item forward. So maybe before the chairs start their discussion, Emily, would you like to speak to what kind of an event you're hoping to help organize, or what you'd like to see from the city?
Absolutely. I at this point can't speak for Black Americans or people in Greenfield, but I can speak from the heart here and now, which is to say a lot of us are feeling incredibly concerned, worried, angry, and want questions answered. So I'm really hoping this forum can open the door with our Greenfield Police Department to quell a lot of anxieties. Worrying about our police force. Sorry, I'm totally nervous in front of all of you people, lovely people.
You're doing great.
It's great. I believe in this moment holding a public forum will help quell the sadness, anxiety, and anger that many of us are feeling. They will not only de-escalate a lot of negative feelings, but will make us stronger as a community. And that's something I wrote directly to Officer Hague and Deputy Chief Williams. Ultimately, I have a lot of concern about what I'm now referring to as ticking time bomb police officers. And a theme I'm noticing across the country is a lot of these officers who have been involved in the murders of innocent lives have had track records of previous use of force infractions, of domestic abuse infractions, and I want to ask hard questions to our police force. I want to know if there is a civilian board in place to investigate circumstances like this. And I really want to garner the support of the chair members and the city council and as many people as possible to create this forum, to have questions answered, and to move forward in a really appropriate way.
Thank you. Thank you for your words and for bringing this to our attention. It's so important. In talking with President Stempel, she hoped that the chairs tonight could come up with some parameters for discussion and decide on a few potential dates and talk around the possibility of it being co-sponsored by the city of Greenfield and a local community organization. And I certainly personally agree with all those things. So I'm putting it out there for discussion amongst the chairs and the mayor at this point. Would anyone like to join in the discussion? Councilor Gwynn.
I was just wondering if this is something that should be fall in the domain of Councilor Gilmore to work with community relations and try to work, with, that would be my thought was, to follow our procedures. Would it be a good idea to put it in that direction? And that's just a question I had.
Thank you, Councilor Gwynn. Councilor Gilmore?
I'd be happy to help organize something like this. If you want to put this on CRE, I think that would be a good place for it.
Thanks. Question, Councilor Dolan, and then we'll go to the mayor.
I would say I think this is a fantastic idea. One thing that I've realized in the midst of everything that's happening at the national level is I don't know that much about our police force and their particular activities, and I don't think that that's necessarily their fault. But any opportunity, this is the perfect moment to bring a little more transparency to what they're doing for the community. I think my question is around format and where this should live. Has the council ever sponsored a forum like this directly, or is it usually done by individual subcommittees? I know groups like the Sustainable Greenfield Implementation Committee have done this. Like, where does this kind of event usually live in the structure of the council?
Right, that's a great question. I may throw it to the mayor in a second, but just believe it was her intention to have this go through a subcommittee necessarily. I believe that it was her intention for the city government in some way to co-sponsor with a community organization, but maybe the mayor could speak to that some. Mayor?
Hi there. I can, and I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Is everyone hearing an echo? I apologize.
Yeah, small echo.
Well, typically what has happened in the past when this happens, and I'm not sure what the problem is, I think it's my laptop.
Yeah.
If everybody mutes, it'll help. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I can't make it stop. I'm sorry.
Kathy, can you try to mute, if the mayor's logged in more than once, can you try to mute one of her accounts?
That's a possibility. I had trouble logging on, that's why I was late.
Yeah.
Headphones might also be helpful if you happen to have them.
Unfortunately, no.
Well, it's not the worst echo that I've heard as WebEx echoes go. I think we can live with it. So other
So,
people.
I'm sorry I'm late, so I didn't catch the front end of this, but I take it you're talking at this point in time about the, I don't hear an echo, so that's good, as long as everyone can hear me. You're talking about the forum.
Yeah.
So,
Let me-
I'm happy to facilitate this. I do think, and I did speak with President Stemple today on a variety of issues, reopening Greenfield and how to enhance restaurants' ability to operate in with outside dining, as well as what to do going forward with regard to a forum. So I do think it's important for this particular forum that the city, in both the executive office of the mayor and the city council, make this happen. It's very important that it does happen, and I know that the chief of police is unfortunately not able to be here tonight, although he did send an email, and I don't know how many of you got it. So with some explanation of what they do right now, and I'm happy to read that into the record if necessary, just to let you know what steps they already take and what training they already have and how it's up to date. I know, Tim, you said you don't know that much, so I'm happy to bring this group up to date with that.
Yeah,
But anyway, all I'm
up to
saying
the
is,
full.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry, yeah, my internet is having trouble. I think that'd be a great idea to read that section of that email out, since it did not go out to the whole committee.
Okay, I'll do that. But let me just say, we're happy to facilitate this forum. If we do it with the council, it could be with the community relations subcommittee. It could be with the President Stemple and you and the community relationships. However you want it to happen, we will make it happen. I think it's important, perhaps, that it happens sooner rather than later. So I think I'm going to leave that piece there. Know that we want to cooperate with you. Know that we're very interested in conducting this type of forum. And we feel it's important that one, our police department is involved from the get-go, and two, that we make sure that it's an informational forum. It's not an opportunity to attack without information. And it's an opportunity to have people's questions answered. So I'm happy to facilitate that. Now, if you want me to read the sheet, it's short.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to read it now, and I'll let you guys talk about what you need to talk about.
Very good.
Okay. So he's not able to attend. I am more than happy to participate in a forum should it be established for the near future. In the meantime, we do have cruiser cameras, and we do have accreditation approved use of force policies that are followed and verified through our policies and procedures. Body cameras were talked about at one time. However, the cost was always a concern. Furthermore, we have had numerous bias-based police training, and it is part of the mandatory in-service MPTC training. Do not ask me what that stands for. And over 75% of our police force is trained in critical incident training. I will add that a conversation with Robert Butch Hawkins, of the chair of the Public Safety Committee, has said that they will review their use of force policies already. They sort of advise and help set policy for the police department. So the Safety Commission, I'm sorry, I think I said Public Service before, but Public Safety Commission will do that again soon. And they do it every year. They review it every year. They discuss it with the police department to attempt to figure out, is it working? Is it not working? What are the issues that have come up? So I think it would be good, most definitely, for our community to hear from all of these people so that they understand that we do train our people, and I consider our police force some of the best we have around. We are not Minneapolis, we're not LA, we're not New York. So it's an opportunity for us to let them hear from you, and for you to hear from them.
Great. Thank you for reading that, Mayor. I agree. And before I throw it back to the members for discussion, I want to just kind of, again, draw the parameters as President Semple relayed them to me, as she envisioned it. It's a little bit hard not having her here, but she, like I said, hoped that the city in some way would co-sponsor with the local organization, and she did, I think I forgot to mention this, hope that the chairs would lead in some way, at least those willing to participate. And we do want to go back to Emily, but before that, I think we had a comment from Councilor Dolan.
Yeah, been thinking about kind of how to move this forward, and I wanted to propose that maybe we hold a special full council meeting at some point in the next 2 weeks, and plan to suspend the rules and basically give the reins over to whichever community organization we kind of steps up to actually facilitate, if that's what we want to do. I would advocate strongly for at least some of the questions to be submitted ahead of time. I know what often happens at forums is the answer you end up getting is, I'll have to look into that and get back to you. And I think just to kind of, I think considering the gravity of some of these questions, like giving the chief time to find the answers is really important. And maybe we also have an open question and answer period, but particularly for some of those bigger questions that involve data, I would like to submit some ahead of time. I don't know if that makes sense to other people.
Yeah, thanks. From my standpoint, I think it's a little bit cumbersome to call a special meeting, just in terms of all the requirements for notice and for hand delivering notices. I'm not shooting it down, but that's just my first instinct to that. I absolutely agree that they should be vetted. The questions should be vetted ahead of time. And we have a comment from Clerk Scott, I believe, although I can't always tell.
Yes, sorry, Councilor Wheeler, that is me. So I just wanted to mention that if it is a special council meeting that you choose to go to, that all open meeting law requirements would need to be met. So oftentimes, it wouldn't be a special council meeting. It would be councilors participating in a public forum. Just wanted to make note of that.
Thank you, Clerk Scott. So I think that we would have more freedom to schedule this if we had a limited number of councilors, such as the committee chair. Councilor Gilmore, or did you want to, actually, we're going to go to Emily first, and then we'll come back to Councilor Gilmore.
Awesome. Thank you so much for making moves on this. I do have one concern about a city-run forum, and I'm giving examples of things that have happened not in Greenfield, but I still want to put it out there that there's a lot of distrust in politics going on as well. An example of which is District Attorney Jackie Johnson not charging her friends for the murder of Mr. Arbery. And I'm wondering if this is something that can be run by a third party, if that does make it more seem like we are going to attack the police, which is not my goal. My goal is to ask for more bias training and figure out ways to find funding for body cams. I'm willing to run fundraisers. I have a team behind me of volunteers who are ready to jump into action at any moment. And yeah, I really want to build the trust back up in our communities. This is really what I want. I want the police to come out ahead of this and really say, hey, we live in your community, we are part of it, and here's what we're going to do to ensure your safety, that we are going to protect and serve.
Definitely. Thank you. Councillor Gilmore?
I know it would be easier if we are able to vet questions, and especially as Councillor Dolan says, sometimes people have very specific questions, and maybe Chief Hague would have to look into some information first. But I worry that by vetting questions, it would be easy to give the impression that we're trying to control the message. And I don't want citizens in Greenfield to feel, even if it's unfounded, I don't want people to feel like they're being censored in any way or that there are questions that are off limits. I think that our police officers in Greenfield are really good, and we are a different kind of community than the communities that we're seeing in the news. But that being said, if citizens can't or don't feel comfortable asking tough questions, it's hard for us to ask them to take our word for it.
Thank you, Councillor Gilmore. Yeah, I agree that I think hard questions are built into the idea of this forum, hopefully. Councillor Dolan?
Yeah, I think I wanted to tag on to what Councillor Gilmore just said. What I don't want this to be is a PR opportunity for the police department. I think one of the advantages of having it as a special council meeting is actually that we could have a public comment period, and the public could actually tell the police what they're thinking and feeling. I don't know of another mechanism by which that process happens. There may be one that I just don't know about, but that seems important. And I agree that the Greenfield Police Department is really good in many ways, and I've seen some very professional behavior. But the fact is that we have had racial incidents related to the police department in Greenfield in the time that I've lived here. It's not a problem that we are immune from in this town. So I think it's important that however we structure this, that we structure it carefully so that we can balance the desire not to attack folks with some real honesty from the community.
Thank you, Councillor Dolan. I'm going to call on Councillor DeSorger because she hasn't spoken yet, and then Councillor Gwynn.
Hi there. I think I personally liked better the idea of a forum. I've been to different things, and a forum seems more like an exchange of information. Emily, I'm not sure how you feel about that, but I've been to a lot of council meetings, and people get to speak and say what they think, which is wonderful. And you give whatever your thoughts are at the time, but those questions aren't necessarily answered. And I can see from the letter that our chief wrote that, he's willing, certainly more than willing to do that. We all certainly think it's a good idea. I think a forum provides more of it really actually starts more with the idea of collaboration. That's what we have here. That's what we want to continue here. I think, Emily, if I'm not speaking out of turn, that's why you actually got, came to this. And even though you said you were nervous at the beginning, why you had the courage to speak, because you wanted an exchange of ideas. I don't find that happens with necessarily with a council meeting where there's a timer, your questions aren't answered. Look how many people there are online right now, or who have written, that really want to speak together, because we are all in this together and to move forward together. This is a peaceful community, and we should all be hearing everything. And I think everybody here, and the police chief that sent this, certainly was of the same mindset. And that's all.
Thank you, Councillor DeSorger. Councillor Gwynn?
I think I can build off what Councillor DeSorger just said. I think if it would be the chair of community relations in conjunction with President Stemple, with the mayor's office, to design a forum that gives everyone what they're looking for, a forum that's informational and puts people at ease, and it doesn't have the structure of a gavelled meeting, and people can share and go back with a couple of people making the criteria. Sometimes when you make your committees too large and you allow everyone to throw an idea in, it falls apart. But we have good people. We have Councillor Gilmore, we have President Stemple or Vice President Wheeler, and the mayor and the mayor's office. If a key group got together like that and set up a forum criteria, I think we could all live by that and would do the right things. And that way, they've heard what Emily had to say. They've heard what other counselors have had to say. And I would put my trust in that they'll have a forum that meets what everyone's looking for, and hopefully go in that direction where it's an asset and people feel comfortable coming and speaking and leave there with a positive feel for what we are all living with.
Thank you, Councillor Gwynn. I certainly think that could be a great place to start from. Other thoughts? Mayor, would you like to chime in now?
I do. Oops, am I muted?
No, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm a wounded soldier here, so just bear with me. My only reason for wanting to comment was I'm trying to envision how, in the age of COVID and remote login, we're all talking as if it were a normal time where we gather at the community center and we have a forum, and there's people that have, or the high school or wherever we want to conduct it, and people are there and we can all interact. We have to be able to put this on via WebEx. So I just want to keep in mind that we are hampered by that, and hampered by the logistics of how that gets done. Now, if there's something that the city of Greenfield can do via expansion of our internet capability, or our capability to enlarge WebEx to have it happen, we certainly will work with you on that. But I am concerned about how we would have a forum in the strictest sense of the word that I think we're all thinking of and longing for, where we come together as a community physically. We're not going to be able to do that. So as long as we're thinking along those lines and consider that as part of the plan, I'm happy to help facilitate that as well. I think I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you. That's a really good point. One suggestion or thing that occurred to me is that, in talking with Emily earlier, is perhaps the meeting could be held on WebEx, but simulcast by GCTV. And so that most people watching would be directed to watch it on GCTV, and just those with questions, if questions were going to be taken live, would be encouraged to be on WebEx. So that's one thought.
That's good.
Yeah. So I think we've kind of talked around this general idea that Councillor Gwynn outlined, which to me feels like a workable plan, and that it could be partnered with, I don't know which organizations are appropriate. I think if there was an anti-racism or an organization led by people of color in the area, that would be best. But knowing groups that I know, you have Not in Our Town, you have the Downtown Neighborhood Association. Councilor Gilmore?
I had somebody from RJR approach me, that's Racial Justice Rising. They've been here in Greenfield for several years, and I think they have a lot of overlap with NIOT as far as membership goes. But if we want to put this in CRE, I'd be happy to write back to that person and let them know, and we can start organizing.
Great, thank you, Councilor Gilmore. I don't know about that organization, but I think that's a great suggestion. I think in terms of committee chair's action, we're looking to move on this quicker than the normal committee chair's schedule. So my suggestion would be that maybe President Stemple, the mayor, and Councilor Gilmore work together on planning this forum. How does that sound to other members? Thumbs up from Councilor Dolan. Thumbs up from Councilor DeSorger.
Yeah.
Works for me.
Works for the mayor. Excellent.
Works for Sheila.
All right.
I'm good with that.
Okay, good. What about you, Emily?
This absolutely works. And I would love to talk about the date with you and try to organize with you. I actually am one of the volunteers that is part of the group I'm trying to build for Greenfield is part of Racial Justice Rising, and had actually hoped to be here tonight, but I'm not seeing her on here. But this all sounds like a really great start.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming and for bringing this idea to the table. And so just to recap, we'll have President Stemple, Mayor Wiedegartner, Councilor Gilmore, and I think Emily work together on planning this event, perhaps with the participation of some chairs, and certainly Chief Haig and Chief Strand, and like the mayor said, trying to do this sooner than later. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm gonna
Thanks,
let you. Oh.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.
And you did great.
Thanks. Have a great meeting.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks a lot. Okay, so that was the first of our president's notes. And the second one, which I believe this did go out, I hope, to all of the chairs, was around the phase 2 outdoor dining accommodations. And President Stemple wanted to just put this forward as a discussion item and see where the mayor's office was at, because I know a lot of us certainly feel that it's important to prioritize our restaurants and our downtown businesses in general at this time as they struggle. Mayor, did you have a chance to speak to President Stemple, or would you like to speak to this in any way?
Yeah, I think my message to you, I can also speak to this, overlapped with your saying, would you like to speak? So here I am. I did have an opportunity, as I said, to speak with President Stemple about this today. I will tell all of you that we have been working on a plan for this for at least a little more than a week, actually way more than a week. I will first let you know what we have done. We have reached out to almost all of the restaurants. We missed a couple here and there, to send them a survey. And part of that survey was how would they receive both the opportunity to enhance their outdoor dining by us designing areas within the sidewalk/parking area of Main Street or wherever they're located. And would they be able to participate? Would they want to participate in that? Would they be able to apply any resources towards that, and so forth? And we did get several responses. I, at one point, had the number in my head. Now I don't, although I do think Bill Stathis, who was doing that out of our office, is on this call. He could type in the chat area if he can hear me. How many people responded, but several of them did. All of them positive about wanting to have opportunities for outdoor dining that they may not have. So we do have that survey out there. MJ Adams is helping me with this, and we have all been working with the DPW and the police department to design a way to take over. Let's envision from Baker's all the way down past Main Street Grill. So on that side of the street and across the street where it applies to restaurants on the west side of the street. I'm sorry, the south side of the street. And our plan is to commandeer, so to speak, several parking spaces out in front of each of those restaurants or in very close proximity to them, where they occur naturally on the street. It says here that 6 restaurants responded to our survey. So among them were Hope and Olive, Magpie, others. I don't know, Namaste, Pete's, and so forth. Now, Pete's all set with outdoor dining. That's our plan is to take over some of the parking areas and turn them into outdoor dining areas so that we leave a portion of the sidewalks free for people to walk down, which we need to be able to do. We also need to be able to keep open some areas for parking. So it's a plan that is in progress. It is very close to being finalized. I also want to make sure people understand that helping these people also means that we also alter their ability to serve mixed drinks as part of their outdoor dining. That's a little bit more of an issue, although the governor did issue a executive order today, or maybe it was yesterday, to make it easier for local licensing authorities to grant licenses to expand both outdoor dining and the ability to serve mixed drinks as part of the outdoor dining. So I think we have a good start on this, and we're certainly willing to work with the council if they want to work with us on how to finalize this plan. But I mean, there's still some things hanging out there we have to figure out I'm not intending to ask restaurants who have been closed down, who have not been making income over these weeks, to fund putting tables and chairs out. I want to make sure that we do this the right way. So one of the outstanding issues for me, and I did discuss it with President Stemple today, is how does the city justify purchasing tables and chairs for these outdoor dining venues that we can keep. I think this happens to be I think this happens to be an idea with legs. I'm hoping it'll occur post-COVID, because we've seen that we don't have a lot of opportunities for outdoor dining just by the way that the city has been built up. So I just want to make sure that whatever we do now is something that we can play off of in the future. An additional idea we've had, particularly to assist some of our favorite restaurants on Federal Street, such as the Hangar and People's Pint, and they did also respond. And they're very much asking for some leeway in serving mixed drinks as well. And leeway in opening up. They have the opportunity perhaps to redesign and reopen their storefront so that it is more able to be open during nice times of the year and extend out on to the sidewalk. But that's another story. So there's a lot of thinking that has been going into this, and we're quite aware that we want this to happen soon. Some of it will require your help in making changes to city ordinances as quickly as possible. We have drafted some language for certain ordinances that are affected by this. So we stand ready to sort of begin to implement. And I will say that Danny has been the person in charge of this at the front of this. She's not on this evening because she's on vacation this week, but or if she is, she hasn't let us know that she's on. But I see MJ there, and she can certainly speak to this too if you have it. So I think I'll stop talking, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you for the update, Mayor. Yes, I think we do have a few questions, and I'll start with, was it MJ? Did you have your hand up, Director Adams?
I did not have my hand up. I was just offering information about the restaurants that responded.
Thank you.
When I had my hand up, I was telling you how many people had responded. Sorry. And then I realized you didn't get it, so that's why I typed them in chat.
Yeah, I can't always see everyone, but I appreciate it. So then next would be Councilor Gilmore.
I lied. I actually have two questions. Somebody suggested to me, and I don't know if this works in Greenfield. I haven't thought it through very thoroughly yet. If other people have, I would love that information. But someone suggested to me that if we shut down certain streets to automobile traffic, we would have more access for outdoor dining. I think that might be hard with Main Street because a lot of folks need to go down Main Street if they need to get to 91, and people are still commuting, if they're essential workers. My second question, and this is directed at Roxanne. You said some of these restaurants are asking about mixed drinks.
Mm-hmm.
Does beer and wine fall under the same category? I know sometimes we treat them differently. So is beer and wine somehow different from mixed drinks in this context, or are you just saying all alcoholic beverages?
Well, it is. Some restaurants, and I always seem to always get this wrong, but some restaurants only have beer and wine licenses, and that's all they sell, and they don't want to sell mixed drinks or whatever. For whatever reason, the license for that wasn't available to them, and so forth. what the problem has been is that, if I understand the confusion around the state's laws with regard to serving mixed drinks, quote unquote, on the street, is that there are certain laws that have been set in place where they have tried to control that. So the question, the statement that was put to me a few weeks ago when I was trying to talk to as many individual restaurant owners as I could about how we might make this happen was, please ask the state to do for us, to do for mixed drinks what they did for beer and wine, which is, one, allow us to serve it in enclosed containers for takeout, because at that point all we were able to do was takeout. But then it became clear as we began to move through the phases that outdoor dining, people with outdoor dining possibilities that don't already have outdoor dining licenses and the ability to serve drinks there, wanted to have a shorter and less involved process to allow them to now serve alcohol out on their quote unquote street, out on the outdoor dining areas that they're in. So this is what we're working on, and what the state is being asked to work on is how to allow areas, how to allow restaurants that do serve alcohol for inside dining to allow them to now, if they're opening up outside venues that they don't already have, how to serve it out there. In other words, to make it a more seamless process to both for the local licensing authority to both grant them the ability to use an outdoor dining area, but also to serve all manner of alcohol if their license allows them to. So it's confusing, and it's only confusing because the laws are kind of confusing. So I hope that answered your question. With regard to closing off certain streets, we certainly talked about that. It is difficult on Main Street. It's doubly difficult on Federal Street. There's a weird, strange part of the law that says you can't, even though you as a restaurant might have a designated parking lot, you can't turn your parking lot into your outdoor dining area. So there's a lot of hoops that we have to go through in order to make sure that once we get this to happen, that we get it right so that we don't have to change it in the middle of the stream. So I hope that answered your question, Sheila.
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we've got other questions to get to, and I'll try to do it in the right order. Councilor Dolan?
Yeah, first of all, I want to commend the mayor's office for putting so much work into this. I know it's the kind of thing you have to scratch together very quickly. My one concern is that 5 of the 6 restaurants that are named are not on Main Street. And I know that as an owner of Ice Cream Alley, I was not approached with this survey. None of us were. So I want to make sure that we are covering all of the food service establishments, which may have different needs depending on the type of business they are, whether it's ice cream or the bakery or a number of different things. And so I hope maybe we can kind of revisit that survey.
Okay, well, I can answer that, Tim. And I'm sorry that wasn't clear. Once we establish these areas in front of various eating establishments, whatever they are, with or without whatever they serve, whatever they do. They're not designated for a specific restaurant. They are designated for that as a dining area for the restaurants that are in that proximity. So yes, you can, if all you want to do is you don't have enough space in front of your store. I'm thinking now of the bakery, Rise Above. So you have space for a couple of small tables, but you can't extend yourself out onto the sidewalk. Yes, there will be an area out there for you, for your customers to be able to sit and enjoy their coffee and their pastry, regardless of what time of day it is during your open hours. So they're not being designated specifically to any one restaurant. They are, for lack of a better word, I don't know. It's a funny, think of them as food courts. Think of going to, the mall and getting your pizza and your partner getting his hamburger or her hamburger and both of you going someplace and sitting and eating type of thing. So they're not, no one's going to quote unquote own them except for the city of Greenfield.
Okay. Next, I think we had a comment from Councillor DeSorger.
I also want to thank you and whoever else has worked on this, MJ, Danny Letourneau, our mayor, whoever's been involved with this, because that's one of the things that I just so hope happens. And if there's any way that I can help these restaurants to be able to move forward, just speak out and I'll do whatever it is. I've talked to a couple of restaurant owners. I've heard that the ability to sell mixed drinks outside is going to make it or break it for them. I heard from someone else who had some information about the licensing board that to get this extra license, I think is probably between $200 or $300, and perhaps where they were unable to use the regular license for several months, we could cut them a break with this new license, and any way that we could expedite it, I'm in. And also my other little thought, for what it's worth, because, and I know you've all already thought of these things, or probably thought of them, but I thought of Ames Street, a little like something over Ames Street so those two restaurants could participate. But that was just my little thought. You've probably already got that all covered, but thank you. And just tell me how I can help.
Thank you, Councillor DeSorger. Councillor Gwynn.
I just want to say, as far as ordinances go, I'm happy to work with the mayor's office, get those ordinances in. If I feel there's not time permitting to get them to ordinances and follow the normal procedure, I'll then forward them on to full council in order to get them there without going through ordinances to facilitate these things quickly, to make sure that we benefit our local restaurants and eating establishments. I think there's no time more critical for our local businesses to get potential revenue that's out there, to keep them healthy, to keep them going, and it will have my full support in following the protocols set up to get this done.
Thank you, Councillor Gwynn. And that reminds me of an action item request from President Stemple, which I did not bring forward, which is that this item be put on the A&O agenda as well as the full council agenda. And that said, she wanted me to relay that the council in no way, it's not her intention that the chairs or the council take this over from the mayor. It's merely that we do what we can to get it on the agenda so that the mayor's office could have a chance to have it ready. And with that, I'll throw it back to the mayor.
Oh, thank you. Yes, so we have some draft changes to different parts of the code that affect this, including sandwich boards, which are less of an issue, but they do take up space on the sidewalk. So might as well kill that bird too at the same time. So we'd like to do some changes. I mean, right now our outdoor dining prohibits you from drinking alcohol. We're going to strike that. That is an example. We just want to make sure that if you folks already have some thoughts about how to change those ordinances, that we work together to incorporate and think of those things together versus having two sets of things out there running, Dan. So happy to show you very quickly, as in probably tomorrow, what we have put together for changes. They are by no means our final thinking on it, but they are certainly subject to discussion. So if you have additional ideas and ways to change that, we want to hear them, and so that whatever comes to the full council is a body of work that has been worked on by both of the entities, both the council and the mayor's office.
Great. Councilor Gwynn, did you want to respond?
Yeah, my follow-up would be, I have no problem with that. One of the problems would be, I would have to ask Kathy. My A&O meeting is tomorrow, so I don't think I can add it to the agenda.
No.
So I would happily talk with the mayor's office tomorrow, and then I would recommend, Councilor Wheeler, that we put it right on the full agenda, because we won't have time to bounce it back.
Thank you. Is that an irregular meeting? I thought it was the second. I'll throw it to the clerk, actually. Clerk Scott?
Hi, thank you, Councilor Wheeler. Just to mention, Councilor Gwynn, that the A&O committee meeting is scheduled for June 10th.
Okay, I was thinking, yeah, so we have time. Yeah, not an issue there. For some reason, I was thinking it follows this meeting, but that might have been me just not paying attention to the date. So that's not an issue. Thank you.
It actually does, I think, occasionally, depending on how the Tuesday, the first day of the month falls. So that sounds like we have time. It sounds like Councilor Gwynn is willing and able to work with the mayor's office on this. So we can put that, I think, on the agenda without having the exact language tonight.
Excellent. Yes, I agree.
Great. Councilor Gilmore.
I'm just wondering, is it possible for us to suspend an ordinance or a portion of an ordinance for a determined amount of time, like if we said 90 days? Or do we need to adopt a separate ordinance? I'm just wondering how this works out on paper, if someone could explain.
Right. Well, I've seen the draft changes from Daniel Letourneau, and to my thinking, many of them are, if not all, are worth making long term. But regardless, she has most of the details worked out, and I trust that Councilor Gwynn and the mayor can, I think, knock the football back and forth, but I'll let Councilor Gwynn speak to that.
I do not believe we can suspend anything open-ended. I think Mass General Law is not going to let us get away with that. But I think we can take portions and make recommendations to alter them, whether on a permanent basis or a timed basis. And I'll have to get confirmation from the clerk's office on that. But I'm willing to follow the protocol set up and get this done as quickly as possible.
Great, thank you. I wanted to just speak to two pieces, which are certainly ADA requirements are a concern, and they would absolutely, I know, be followed in this. Require 3 feet, and actually, I think the current way that outdoor seating is written requires 6 feet. So there's some room in between there to maybe require less space while still allowing plenty of room for wheelchairs to get by. And then the other thing that I would throw back is just speaking to Councillor Gilmore's great suggestion earlier about closing streets. It doesn't need to mean something so aggressive as closing Main Street, which I know lots of restaurant owners would object to because a lot of their customers drive. It could mean something like closing Court Square on a Friday or a Saturday night, especially if the city had tables. And I know that the Downtown Neighborhood Association would be happy to partner in any type of event like that. And I'll throw it to the mayor.
I was just going to say, I don't recall if I mentioned this, but in addition to doing those areas along Main Street, setting aside those areas along Main Street, one of the things we've been talking about but have not advanced on too much in terms of where we might do this is setting up restaurant zones. So meaning, again, additional areas for dining. Let's say you're picking up something at Namaste and the area right in front of the restaurant is full. Well, yes, maybe you can go across the street to the Common or in front of City Hall. I mean, we have not figured out where those we're most focused right now on the proximity of the outdoor dining to the restaurant. And I do know that the state law actually speaks to that as well. So restaurant zones may be a little above their pay grade. We'll have to figure that one out ourselves. But we're working on that. I actually am inclined, and I think this is the way Chief of Staff Daniel Letourneau and I have been thinking, that whatever we do to the ordinances are something that will carry us forward long term. So you're correct, Vice President Wheeler, in thinking that what we're trying to do is make it so that we can adapt for the day when we're not involved in trying to fit something to COVID-19.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Gwynn?
I just want to kind of bring this up to the mayor now, and I'm sure that she's already on top of these things, but when she was talking to Councillor Dolan about these shared spaces, my concern would be whose responsibility is it to be within the protocols of COVID cleanliness? The sanitizing of the area in between diners. If it's kind of a drop-in situation like a food court or a cafe square, as we used to call it at the Holyoke Mall, whose responsibility would then be in this enclosed area? Where does that liability fall? Does it fall on some town department that doesn't know that that's their job today? Or does it get co-op somehow between the participating restaurants within the area? And that would be my only concern. Just like when we pass an ordinance, I'm always concerned when someone says there's a fine, that who's in charge of the enforcement, because ordinances that are only there to feel good don't really carry any kind of recognition if there's no way to enforce them. So that would be my concern.
Those are all good questions, and they're questions that we're considering, but we do not have answers for yet. So I guess more will be revealed.
Continue to address those at A&L and going forward. I do know from the governor's order that he sent out yesterday that if alcohol is being served, there either needs to be management personnel from the licensee there, or it needs to be contiguous to the premises.
That is correct.
That's just when, is served. So, is there anything else on that topic before we move on?
The only thing I would say is you're correct. Whatever we do will not supersede whatever the state tells us we can do. We will work to the boundaries of that to the extent that we can and beyond. But yeah, we will do it. And so it may not be ideal, but it will be it will be better than what we have now. And it will be within the boundaries of what we have to accomplish under the law.
Within the law, but outside the box. Sounds good.
Exactly. Thank you.
All right. So thanks everyone for that. That will go on the A&L and council agendas, and we will move on. We're almost done with the president's notes here. So now we have an ordinance which I submitted to prohibit unmuffled compression release engine brakes. And that would be for A&O. And just to give a quick background on that, my father owns a trucking company. He suggested this one to me. I would not have necessarily been inclined otherwise, but engine brakes certainly have their place, but that place may not be in Greenfield. As he pointed out to me, they tend to be used on 5 and 10 generally, but as far as the discussion, I won't get too far into it because it could happen at subcommittee, and there's no real pressing concern on this one. But I'm actually going to go to Councillor Gwynn first. Councillor Gwynn.
We can take this up, obviously, and it's on the agenda for appointments and ordinances. My question right off the bat was, Councillor Wheeler, has it been a situation? I'm very familiar with Jake brakes as I lived on the Mohawk Trail for 10 years. I fell asleep listening to them and woke up listening to them for about 10 years of my life. So has there been an issue? Because there is limited use. I'm always wondering where these came from. Has there been feedback from constituents? And then we will turn it over to A&O and to our homework.
Thank you. No, this one, well, I've heard general noise complaints and constituent concerns around noise ordinances for a while, and I've tried to find ways to address them that are more specific and therefore easily enforced. But this one, I have to say, comes more from my own I just personally see a need for it, and I wouldn't expect it to be something that would be necessarily enforced by the police, certainly not regularly ticketed, but having an ordinance would allow the DPW to potentially put up signs in a couple residential neighborhoods where I don't think it's appropriate. I'm not tied to the idea, certainly. If it seems inappropriate, I'll be happy to withdraw. But that's where it's coming from. And we have a few comments, and I think first is Councillor DeSorger.
Otis and Dan, I'm not like the two of you. I didn't know much about Jake brakes, although I know a lot today. And I am questioning the timing of this. Actually, that's what I'm going to say about this. Councilor Wheeler, I'm sorry. From the time that you've even brought this up, I feel like the world's changed quite a bit in the last week. And I see both sides. I see sides of this. I read things about truckers and what this did to their brakes, and if they were unable to use this, it saved. There's a lot of truckers that are bringing things back and forth somehow, and pardon me if I'm not explaining this correctly to those of you who actually understand this better. but it saves the life of their brakes in some way. And I looked up the decibels. We have other things in town that make a lot more noise. I just, at this point in time, where we are, I don't want to have anything on the table, and that's just my personal feeling, that is bringing up the rights of one thing versus the rights of another. You know, the right of a business to do this versus this. But Councilor Wheeler, I definitely understand where you're coming from, and I hate to put a kibosh on anybody's idea that they bring up, but I have concerns about the timing, and I probably, maybe I'm alone in that, but I just wanted to say that out loud.
Thank you, Councilor DeSorger. I'd just like to reply briefly, which is that I partly put this forward because there was nothing at the time on the council's agenda for this month. But having said that, I guess I would still request that it go on A&O's agenda, but at the absolute discretion of the chair. And so if Councilor Gwynn doesn't feel the need or necessity to move on it, then that's certainly appropriate. And I don't feel the need to push to have it on council agenda right now, certainly. So Councilor Dolan.
I just wanted to chime in and say, having lived on Deerfield Street for a few years, this is absolutely a problem. I don't think I knew what the noise was, but I wouldn't have been able to identify it before this ordinance came out, but it is absolutely an issue in that area.
Thank you. And Councilor Gilmore.
My question's been answered.
Okay, thanks. And again, I'm not, even though it is as written, a blanket ban throughout the city, it could be narrowed to just certain streets. I certainly see the need for it in certain areas, and Greenfield Mountain may be one. In my opinion, on 5 and 10 generally, it's used because of sort of improper operation, or at least I think it's an improper use. But again, that's just me. Councilor Gwynn.
Not at this time, but I would love to have the opinion of Director Warner on this, as I feel he would be the one that has the most knowledge of equipment and Jake breaks and, you know, when they're appropriate. So we don't need to take that up now. It'll be on the A&O agenda, and I would like to reach out to him through the mayor's office.
Absolutely. All right, any further discussion on that one? Seeing none, we'll move on to Ways and Means, which is pretty simple this month. We have 5 orders to appropriate interdepartmental transfers. I know that we've taken some questions on these already from Director Gilman, but if anyone has any, yeah, Councilor Gilmore.
I was just curious. So if we're taking money out of contributory retirement accounts, does that money have to be paid back later, or is this some sort of an excess that we think we have? And if Director Gilman is here, I would really appreciate sort of a rundown.
Right. She can give a better answer than I can. Director Gilman.
Now, I think you all received some information on contributory retirement, the letter, the assessment for this year, the amount that was budgeted from Munis, and also a memo I sent in regards to that. So yes, it's an assessment that we pay each year. This balance closes at the end of the year. There was excess in it because of the GSET appropriation amount, and it is not needed for the city to pay this. I will refer to the memo that I did send that talked about last year's budget hearings where it was not certain whether the Department of Revenue would certify GSET's retained earnings for their first year as an enterprise. So it was up in the air of whether GSET would be able to absorb this in the budget. So to be safe, I covered it in the current year's operating budget. So it is excess at this point, but we do need to budget what we are given as an assessment each year. So this doesn't affect next year. It doesn't affect, what we're paying this year. It's just excess.
Okay, thank you, Director Gilman. Any further questions on these?
Sir, can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah.
Director Gilman, when did you send that memo? I don't remember seeing that.
The memo was sent with the original financial order, and then I sent forward a response to Councilor DeSorger's questions that should have contained that memo, the actual assessment letter that the retirement committee board gives us, and then a munis report that shows how it all ties together. So you should have received all those 3 items.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry about that. I'll look for them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the date is May 27th was the most recent one. That's what I'm seeing in my email.
Okay.
So, all right, so those will go on the Ways and Means agenda in the order listed. Next, we have appointments and ordinances.
Sorry.
Yeah, Councilor Gwynn.
I would, at this point, there's 3 things on my agenda for June 10th. I would like to drop all 3 of those onto the July ordinance meeting and add only the restaurant and outdoor dining ordinances to be taken up on June 10th.
Great suggestion, Councilor Gwynn. Clerk Scott, is that noted in the record?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much.
I just feel that all 3 of the other items can wait a month, and we want to get the restaurants turned around as quickly as possible.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
So the mayor had mentioned that there were other ordinances that they also wanted to have amended quickly. Are those also going on for June?
Vice President Wheeler, I have no problem with any of the things that pertain to the situation and crisis we're in now being added to that June 10th ordinance if the mayor feels that they're needed.
Thank you, Councilor Gwynn. Yeah, so I think it would be called Phase 2 outdoor dining accommodations. And if we need to be more detailed than that, I can check Danny Letourneau's email.
We can always follow up with you, Councilor Wheeler, in an email, just to be clear of what we received and what should go on A&O as well as Councilor Gwynn.
Sure, why don't we do that?
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilor DeSorger, did you wish to speak on this?
I actually had I had put a queue up before while Director Gilman was on the phone. I wanted to go back to the retirement question if Director Gilman is still online. I think I see her there. I actually read what you sent me twice, and I understood part of it, and I am still not understanding why we couldn't save that and even put it in stabilization or something so that we're holding that for the use of retirement for next year or whatever, because we know that that's going to be our biggest budget item. So I got part of what you sent me, but I understood part of what you sent me. But I'm on Ways and Means, and I thought, I looked and I read and I thought, I know how important it is for us to keep money in retirement, and I'm concerned about voting for that.
Um,
So if you can
So
explain
here's
that.
a reason, another reason is that we have to cover the deficits in these other accounts. If we don't cover them, we are going to have to raise them on the recap, which will increase the taxes and what we have to raise.
Okay, so I get it. So we didn't have the money for that, so we actually had to take it from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's fine. I needed to know that because I thought, okay, that wasn't abundantly clear to me. I thought, okay, there's so much, but
True.
if we didn't
Well,
have the money in the town to pay those things from the current fiscal year, then I get that. You have to take.
and so just to give you a heads up, because of what's coming is our end of year transfers, where we do move things around from departments to cover deficits, and that has to be done by July 15th each year.
Mhm.
So I'm just giving a heads up that that will be coming too.
Thank you.
Right, thank you, and we'll have a more in-depth discussion if necessary at Ways and Means.
Yeah.
Okay, and moving on, to recap, we're going to move the 3 items from A&O to July. We're going to put outdoor dining on the June 10th A&O meeting agenda. And now we're at economic development, which at this time has 2 items for continued discussion: split tax and TIF policy. Councilor Dolan, did you wish to keep those on the agenda?
I would actually like to take both of those off. Split tax, we've kind of come to a pause. There wasn't really motivation within the committee to move forward necessarily on anything, and the TIF, we actually have not had a TIF committee meeting, so I think it's a little premature to talk more about the TIF policy. I would like to add, though, actually the subject of potentially closing down some streets and making kind of slow streets, whatever folks are calling them these days. Specifically, NACDO just put out some guidance called Streets for Pandemic Response and Recovery, and I was hoping EDC could talk about which strategies might be appropriate for Greenfield.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to take the 2 prior items off the table, and we're going to put something on shared streets just as a discussion item. Question, Clerk Scott?
Councilor Dolan or Councilor Wheeler, will Councilor Dolan be sending some information for the packet?
Let's see. This document is quite long. Is it better? Can I just send a link? Would that work?
That would be fine, I expect, just so that councilors would have something to review before the meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send. I mean, and this is not the only way to do it. This is just the one that seemed like a good place to start. So yeah, I'll send that link for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, great. That's an important item for discussion. I know President Semple mentioned to me on the phone today that she had reached out to Mass Development to see if there's any funding available for this sort of thing. And I had also been in discussion with the mayor around a small grant from one of the, I actually forget where it was from, but it was a matching grant. Councilor Gwynn.
Thank you. I just want to say that I would like to work with Councilor Dolan on any of those positions. So A&O and economic development are in unison. So if he brings an idea forward, I can already be in on it or with him, so we know where the ordinances have to change if that has to go forward. So we're working in unison. So when it's ready, we can act on things quickly versus having to go back.
Can I suggest, would it be worth putting an item on your agenda for discussion, and EDC can kind of hand our recommendations off to you this month?
I believe that would be appropriate as we're looking at, we can definitely draw it into the same criteria as we're trying to do with the outdoor dining. I mean, it's all overlappingly related.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you both. So did I hear a request to put shared streets discussion on both the A&O and the EDC agendas? Is that correct?
That's correct from my point of view, yes.
Thank you. Okay, anything else from EDC?
I think that's it. Thanks.
Okay, great. So now we're gonna move on to community relations, education. We had a couple items here, the Greenfield mask program status update and federal census status update. Councilor Gilmore, did you wanna let us know where you're at with that, either of those?
Yeah, I think that both of those will be very, very quick. So I think it's worth it to leave them on the agenda. And especially as we move to phase 2, talking about masks and how we expect people to properly social distance and wear masks and things like that, I think is going to be important while we move through the phases. I'm wondering, so since I'm meeting on the 15th, do we want to add an item for my committee to talk about the recent problems with police brutality in other towns, and how our town is working to mitigate and prevent problems like that? Or do we feel like that's too late?
Committee members, would anyone like to weigh in on that? I guess my feeling would be that hopefully it's the subject's going to be addressed at the forum that we talked about earlier. But that's just a first thought.
Right, but I don't think we have a definitive date for the forum. So I was wondering if we were going to be talking about organizing that forum on June 15th, or are we expecting that it's going to be done by then?
I can't really say. I think that I heard implied in the conversation a desire to schedule it probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And the 15th could be a potential date, but I know that we wanted to leave room for it to be at whatever dates worked for all the participants, particularly the chiefs.
Okay, so since we're not 100% sure, can we put that discussion on my agenda? That way, if the forum hasn't started yet, we can talk about ways to get up the word for people to attend. And then if it's a moot point, we can just maybe talk about follow-up items.
Absolutely. So public safety forum discussion, something like that.
Perfect.
All right. So we'll add that as an agenda item. And Councilor DeSorger, do you have something to add?
Council Wheeler, I think you actually just answered that. I kind of heard from the drift that that forum would be scheduled sooner rather than later. It sounded to me like that was going to happen within a week or so, but I also think that what you said, Councilor Gilmore, was good. You certainly to make a space for it if that hadn't happened. But it sounded to me like people were ready to move right forward with it. That's all.
Okay, great. Anything else from CRE? All right.
I think that's plenty. Thank you.
Okay, great. City clerk report.
So I'm actually wondering if the mayor wanted to talk about the city hall reopening to the public, um, to give an update, or if anyone, possibly you, Vice President Wheeler, wanted to give a review of the Charter Review Committee. I do have a listing of subcommittee meetings for this coming year that I wanted to review with all the committee chairs. If is that acceptable?
Yes, sure. Why don't we start there?
So committee chairs will continue to meet on the first Tuesday of the month. If we go back to a physical meeting, they will be meeting at the City Hall meeting room. A&O will be meeting on the second Wednesday of the month. They will be meeting at 5:30 p.m. A physical meeting would also be at the City Hall meeting room. EDC would continue to meet on the second Tuesday of each month at 6 p.m. at the City Hall meeting room. Wednesday, Ways and Means will begin meeting on the third Tuesday of the month at the John Zahn Community Center, unless the first falls on a Wednesday. Then Ways and Means will meet on the Wednesday before the committee council meeting. That's a tongue twister. The council will continue to meet on the third Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. at the John Zahn Community Center, and CRE will continue to meet on the third Monday at 6 p.m. at the City Hall meeting room.
Thank you, Clerk Scott. And just for Ways and Means, is that scheduled to start in July or August?
In July, I believe.
Okay. Councilor DeSorger?
I just had my hand by my hair.
Okay. Anybody else, any other chairs have any questions about the schedule? All right. Seeing none, as long as we're talking about scheduling, are we expecting to need to schedule a special council meeting for end of the year departmental transfers? I guess this is a question for Director Gilman.
Yes, I would schedule one. It happens the third Wednesday of July happens to be the 15th of July.
Mm-hmm.
But that might be cutting it too close. So maybe we schedule one for the week before and the 15th. What do you think of that?
Sure. I mean,
July 8th, and then your regular council meeting is July 15th.
right. We want to work with the city, but we want to give time for any unforeseen circumstances. So I would go with the 8th. Clerk Scott?
So my question was also for Liz, would the 8th be too early? Would you have the information at that point?
I may or may not, but that's why I wanted to make it tentative, if that's all right, or is it too close to make it tentative?
So may I?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I don't see a problem with if we end up having a special meeting, the council office needs to do physical deliveries. So
Oh, you're right.
how would we, how soon, how early out would we know if it was going to be a tentative meeting or if we had to actually do posting and deliveries?
I would stick with the 15th then. Yeah, because especially with July 4th on the weekend. Yeah, and people tend to be off around those holidays. I would go with the 15th then.
Okay, so I'm not hearing a benefit to scheduling a special meeting, so we'll stick with the schedule. We are operating presumably under a virtual meeting scenario, which means we should have no, and it's actually easier to obtain quorum at a regular council meeting anyway. So
Yes.
I'm fine with that.
All right.
Vice President Wheeler,
Yes.
did you want me just to give an overall about the City Hall reopening, or are we going to ask the mayor and the Charter Review Committee also? It's completely your choice, though.
Sure, I think, yeah, if committee chair, wait, is this, I'm sorry, are you asking if we want to do this tonight or at council?
Either way, I'm an open book here.
I'll speak first to the Charter Commission. I think, yes, it would be actually great to invite, I would actually invite David Singer to the council meeting during communications from city offices to just basically publicize that the Charter Commission has started meeting, which it has. We had our first meeting last week, and councilors Gilmore and Forgy are also on there, along with a few other people, and we had a really introductory meeting. But I think it'd be nice to get that out there for anyone who's watching at full council. And then for City Hall, I'll put that out for discussion. What do people think? And that could include the mayor. You know, I don't know if the word has gotten out around it already, or
Councilor Wheeler.
yeah, is that Councilor Gwynn?
Yeah, my question is, was Clerk Scott just suggesting to update us right now on the opening or on a more formal basis? Was just my quick question.
Yeah, and I would say if the chairs want an update now, Clerk Scott, why don't you just give us a brief update?
Sure. So City Hall is open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 to the public. There is someone greeting citizens at the door. Citizens are asked to wear a face covering. Their temperatures are taken. The person at the door is regulating the number of people in City Hall. We've had, a few people each day. I don't think the word has really gotten out yet, but I do know that we're receiving lots of phone calls still, trying to promote people to do online, do their transaction online still. But we have had people coming to City Hall, and people are thankful that we are open. And I think it's been going fairly well so far.
Great, thanks for the update. And just to finish on the Charter Review update, Charter Review Committee is set to meet on the fourth Tuesday of every month through the end of the year. And we're going to talk about 1 to 2 articles of the Charter at each meeting. And we'll invite department heads when it's relevant. And we'll try to have a robust discussion around every article. And towards the end of the year, we'll have public hearings where we specifically solicit the public's opinion. And David Singer was elected chair, and I was elected vice chair. Okay. Anything else from City Clerk report?
No, thank you.
Okay. So now we have the draft City Council agenda. which has the 5 items from Ways and Means, the transfers, and then also the Phase 2 outdoor dining accommodations. Does anyone feel strongly about whether the dining item should come first or not? And I also realized, first of all, that I didn't count, but I'm sorry to interrupt. Councilor Ricketts, I missed your comment in the comments in the chat. Did you have something? Sorry about that. If Councilor Ricketts is here, feel free to chime in. But if not, I'll bring it back to the question around whether anyone has an opinion around the order of the items. And if not, it's not a big deal because all the transfers will be pretty quick. But I guess my instinct would be to put Phase 2 outdoor dining accommodations first in the agenda. Comment from Councilor Gwynn.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a priority for the council to get them done and get them done so nothing distracts us. I think it's fine to start with them, but I think what you have on Ways and Means is fairly routine if it was to follow it or precede it, but that's up to you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I agree. Okay, any further business for the chairs? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Dolan.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Gwynn, second by Councilor Dolan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned at 7:42. Thanks, everyone.
Night.